think we'll switch it over to everyone's favorite topic is really, the customer experience really is about the entire life cycle of your customer. It's not just about support. It's not just about, one particular journey, or excuse me, one particular area or business silo, as we've talked about. A lot of folks are interested in how do you measure success? What are the indicators that you use and help you measure your progress along this journey? How do you know that things are going in the right direction, or the programs that you're putting in place and the changes you're making across your organization are actually having an impact to your customers? I think each of you could have a really great, different point of view on this. So Nigel, why don't we start with you?
So we do the probably traditional things that everybody else does. We do measure NPS. That's, to me, just an indicator. It just tells you you're sort of on the right track. We don't sort of die in the ditch over that, although it's certainly important. We use Office Vibe effectively as a 24/7 engagement tool where we just get and want feedback from people. So you can get almost that real-time perspective of what people are feeling and what they're thinking. Again, that just measures. I think it still comes down to the culture you create and the values that you actually work through with your company. That's the key for everything that we're trying to do. And so you get the vibe, you just get a feeling, you make sure that the environment you create allows people to do the best work of their lives, and then the rest becomes easier to manage. So you have the indicators, sure, but don't die in the ditch over those.
Okay. Keith, measures that you guys are?
So we're actually redefining a lot of our business measures because of the customer
Right.
centricity. We've been obsessed with time on call, for example,
Right.
And tying that to. So I still get these monthly reports, and I'm like, right, but what kind of effort is the customer having to have, and things like that. So we're actually redefining that as a company as part of our being more customer centric. Some other ways that we're seeing success again. 2 years ago, when I started in my role, I was one of the first to have customer experience in my title. Now I actually have peers and people in the business line that are also focused and dedicated to customer experience. And that's an indicator to me that we as a culture are maturing, to Nigel's point about having that cultural maturity, which then leads to those other indicators. NPS is something we've measured for a long, long time, and to your point, we're realizing we don't really, the NPS is usually more about the advisor to their customer experience than it is to us as a provider. So we're realizing that's not a metric that's really valuable to us as a company. So that's why we're having to reevaluate our metrics overall.
So you bring up one thing that's really interesting, and I've heard this for a long time. Oftentimes as we work in support centers, some organizations are really really want to hold on to those legacy measures. Right, that have been traditionally very focused on their particular silo and not necessarily focused on the entire experience for the customer. How have you tackled getting those leaders to let go of their average handle time as a key measure within the organization?
It's been kind of tough. I mean, that's one where it's still effective because it lets you kind of know operationally, and Jamie indicated this as well, it's an easy metric to say, I reduce this amount of calls, therefore I save this amount of money.
Easy math. We like easy
math, right? But so what we're trying to do is saying, instead of just measuring that, let's complement it with more of these customer experience type of metrics, so that we can say, okay, we're saving money, but we're actually just pissing everybody off. That's not exactly the plan. So if you can correlate those metrics together, sometimes it's about keeping the legacy, but then associating them to something that the business is also trying to say, hey, we value our customer satisfaction and their effort scores as well.
Sure, Nigel, is it something that you measure within your organization?
We don't measure hardly anything, really. So we sort of work on the fact that 99% of the people get it right, rather than coming up with rules and policies that sort of deal with the 1%. So that's really how we've sort of embraced that. Again, the storytelling, the why we do it, the what we do is incredibly important. And then we just sell the vision and the values of the company, and touch wood, it's sort of working. I've lived in that world where if you could measure it, you measured it, and that became a really demoralising, I think, sort of environment. I think it created the Cobra effect where people were sort of found shortcuts and ways around that. I think you've just got to get out of that game and start thinking quite differently around the experience. There's lots of other teams and lots of other business units and functions that never get measured to anywhere near the same degree that a support function gets measured. And so we've sort of removed that and just focused on the people and doing the right thing.
Love it. Love it.
I would add to that, I think all of these things that we're talking about, and we measure NPS and CSAT and survey results and all of those, and those are very interesting data points. And they're data points for a particular activity or an instance in time, but they're really not measuring the global or the overall experience that customers are having and the overall feeling that you have. And so we're a sort of a high-touch company. We have a lot of folks in the field who are talking to customers on a regular basis. And so and that I think is why the unified customer experience has been so successful at Ellucian, is we have a variety of inputs coming to us from the field about our experience. And it's not just I had a bad experience with this one particular support case. It's, your website stinks.
Right.
Or this process is terrible. Your maintenance renewal activity is laborious and it's hard to get through.
Right.
Those things are more difficult to quantify, but that's the feedback that we're getting that helps to drive why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, perfect.